Shaykh, I hate my parents. They've never been good to me. I feel like they really dislike me and they hate me. I've spent much of my life trying to do them good, and I try and abide by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I try and be a good, dutiful son, as I'm aware and I know that Allah wants me to be, but I find it hard, and all I find now is hate for them, and I feel guilty. But whenever I make myself available to them, they make me feel worse about myself, and they take advantage of my goodwill and they hold it against me. And I just don't want to make myself vulnerable like that anymore, and I fear Allah, and I'm scared that I'm doing wrong. Please advise me. This was the question I was recently asked, and it's a tough one, because indeed, the obvious advice in Islam and the advice that we're all familiar with is the esteemed position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds parents. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions many times in the Quran, glorious verses in which Allah esteems them and Allah raises their rank, and Allah requires from us that we lay down our wing of mercy before them. But then we have certain circumstances, and that's easy if your parents, and I hope this is the case of most of us, and I know it was definitely the case for myself in the case of my beautiful mother, who truly was an inspiration, a woman who is I consider to be really a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was easy for me to love her. It was easy for me to remember. It's easy for me to remember her with a smile. It's easy for me to remember the good that she did for me and the sacrifices she made for me. But what about those brothers and sisters who have parents who they can't sadly say that for? For those brothers and sisters who have had parents that have had trials with them and who have treated them poorly, or have worse, abused them, physical abuse and mental abuse and different types of abuse that our children go through. And unfortunately, this is their memory of their parents, and this is the difficulty that their parents went through. This is the difficulty that these children went through with their parents, as is the case of the questioner here. So what's to be made of this? Is Allah going to hold him accountable for his resentment towards his parents? I remember there's a book called In Search of Beauty in Islam by an author called Khalid Abul Fadl. And in one of his chapters, he's asked a similar question by a lady who is sadly abused by her parents physically when she was a child. And she asked the Shaykh, do I need to be dutiful to my parents? And the Shaykh's way is a very discursive way of speaking. And he discusses the topic to himself out loud in his book. And I will share with you and echo with you his sentiment. And he says, love is something which is not within the control of somebody. It's not a rational thing. It's a feeling that develops naturally and blossoms when the right environment is there to cultivate it. And Allah doesn't hold us responsible for that which we are incapable of being responsible for. So if it's the case that this young man or this young woman, or you, if you're struggling with your relationship with your parents, if it's impossible for you to love them, that's okay. Inshallah, we hope that Allah rectify your relationship with your parents, but that's not something Allah is going to hold you accountable for. But Allah will hold you accountable for how you deal with them practically. So it's not necessary that you love your parents, especially if they don't deserve to be loved. It's not yet necessary that you hold them in high esteem, or you give them all of the glorious things that we hope that children will do for their parents, and the stories that you hear from the mimbar and the advice that you're given by teachers. But what is required of you is that you never disrespect them, because you can control your behavior. You can control the way you are with people. And Allah does not make it a condition that you respect them, that they deserve that respect. It's not a condition in Islam that they are dutiful to you and therefore you're dutiful to them, or that they were good parents to you and therefore you're good children to them. Each of your relationships will be judged, and each of these interactions will be judged on its own merit. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah won't ask you as children why you Allah won't accept from you as children that you disrespected your parents on the basis that, they weren't good to me. Allah will say, I required of you anyway that you were good to them. And what I mean by good here is that you are respectful for them. Not that you don't disagree with them, because we're allowed, we have been given the faculty of the mind and each mind is independent of each other mind. And it's a great thing that we're able to think individually. And it's no harm in that you disagree with your parents sometimes, or they ask you to do something and you don't want to do it, but you disagree with a smile, right? You say, Ammi Jaan, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You know, right? You give them a hug and you disagree with them. And if you're not able to do that, as is the case of this questioner, then at least you respectfully, you disagree with them. You respectfully say no to them. So remember and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this advice goes not only to the parents, and obviously we can make a separate video of, here I'm speaking to the questioner directly and I'm giving him advice about, or her advice about how to be with from their perspective. But equally we can speak of the importance of being dutiful to your children and respecting them and honoring them so that they're never put in this situation. And equally, this advice can be given to any relationship that we go through in life, whether it's a wife to her husband or a sibling to a sibling. Often we give and we don't get back what we deserve. But nevertheless, remember, foundation your virtue on your relationship with Allah. Be a good wife, not because your husband deserves it. We hope he does. But if he doesn't, be a good wife because you know that Allah wishes you to be a good wife. Right? Be a good husband because your wife, not because your wife deserves it, but be a good husband because you know that's the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah allow you to have good wives and good husbands in any case, so that they do deserve your good behavior. But we ask Allah that Allah give us tawfiq. I'll leave you on that thought, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.